Well, good morning. God bless you. Glad to have you with us here today. And we just want to welcome you back to our study together. We are now on day 14. So if you've been with me every day so far, congratulations. You've made it through the first 2 weeks of daily Bible study. And so I hope that this word has reached you where you are. I hope that this word has been encouraging to you. And as always, there's information that will be on the screen throughout the study here today. That if you need to submit in any kind of a prayer request, or you would want us to be agreeing with you maybe over a need that you have, that something that you're trusting God about, we would love to pray for you. There's contact information there for the website as well. We want to get into our scriptures this morning. We are over in John chapter 14 still, and when we left off yesterday, we saw that Jesus had met the woman at the well, and she was a woman of Samaria. And so in Jesus and her conversation, she had, the last thing that she said that we looked at yesterday was, "Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet." And so as we pick up in verse 20 today, it says, "Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus said unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain, nor yet at Jerusalem, worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him." All right, so we find here in their continued conversation this morning that the lady had makes the statement to Jesus that our fathers worshipped here in this mountain where the well was, and where Jesus had met her. And so she said, our fathers, they worshipped here. And so we find back over here in the scriptures, that it says, and she makes the statement to Jesus. She said, "But you," meaning the Jews, "say that, men ought to worship in Jerusalem." And so we saw that Jesus said to her, she said, "Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship you know not what." All right, so what he's saying unto her at this point is, if nothing changes in your life, he's basically saying to her, if nothing changes in your life, believe me, the hour's coming that you won't worship God at all. All right, so Jesus being the Word, and he was standing in front of her, and he said, "If you knew who I was, you would ask me for living water, and I would give it to you." And so we find that as they're having this conversation, he makes the statement. He says that, you don't know what you're worshiping. He says, salvation is of the Jews, but he goes on to say, "But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him." Now, we've been talking a lot over these last 2 weeks, and fairly amount of detail in these first 4 chapters that we've been talking and discussing. But we find that Jesus, as we go back to what we looked at in the first parts of our study, that Jesus always has been, always will be, and he even is the bread of life, and he is the one that brings light into men's lives, and from him comes life. And he told this lady, he said, if you would have asked me, I would have given you living water, all right, that you would never thirst again. And so he's telling her, he said, the hour's coming and now is. So in other words, there's opportunity right now that true worshipers. Now, I think it's very interesting that he didn't go back and say, this is just a thing for the Jewish people, or this is just a thing for Samaritan people. But he said he identifies who the actual people are that will receive something in their life from the Father, and he calls them true worshipers. When the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. Now, in our lives today, I would ask us this question: are we true worshipers? Do we worship God in spirit and in truth? So in other words, do we worship him within our spirit? So are we focused upon him, and is he what we are have set our hearts and our minds upon? And then do we worship him in truth? Everything that we do, does it honor him? Or do we find ourselves doing things every day just to bring some kind of fulfillment or joy into our life, but it's nothing that God would be pleased with? It's important that we worship him in spirit and in truth, and that's the only way that we can become true worshipers. And Jesus said that's who the Father is seeking to worship him, are true worshipers. Now, we could do a lot of hyping and carrying on and acts of worship and praise, but if it's not true and sincere, if it's not spirit-filled and it's not true worship, then God doesn't honor that, and God's not pleased with that. And so people need to understand that today. Just because you go to church and there you may have dynamic praise and worship through the worship band, and maybe you lift your hands and jump around a little bit during service, but you don't ever really connect with the Lord, and you're not worshiping him in spirit and in truth, then you're not getting anywhere. That's not true worship. And so that's what the Father's looking for. Jesus goes on to say, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, Jesus said that is a must. It's not an option. You must worship him in spirit and in truth. And so as we go down into verse 25, it says that the woman said to him, I know that the Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things. Now, we find in their exchange, the lady then begins to go a little step further. She said, well, I know that the Messiah is coming. I have heard of him being talked about through the scriptures, maybe through her raising. She had heard a lot of things, but it's more than just hearing. You've got to receive him, all right? And so she said, I know that the Messiah cometh, and when he comes, he would tell us all things. And so Jesus said to her, I that speak unto thee am he. Now, I want you to think here for these next few moments about what Jesus says right here. Jesus tells her, he says, I that speak unto you am he. So Jesus just outright told her, he said, I am the Messiah. I am the Christ. And so could you imagine being there that day, being this woman that had come to the well with a need? She had a need she had a physical need. She was physically thirsty, but Jesus knew that she had such a greater need. She had a spiritual thirst that was never going to be satisfied until she met him and believed in him and followed him and worshiped God in spirit and in truth. And today I want to encourage you that Jesus is the Messiah. He is the Christ. And so he just outright told her here, and I'm so thankful that he gives us opportunity to be able to meet him and experience him in a real way. And so today, as we're closing out today, if maybe you've worshiped in church services, but you never really understood what you were worshiping or what you were doing or why you were doing it. Maybe you were doing it because everybody else was doing it, and you didn't want to stick out like a sore thumb, so you wanted to blend in with everybody. But it's important to know and understand what you're worshiping and why you're worshiping. And so continue with us. I encourage you throughout this study here in the book of John. And we're going to see a lot of really good things that'll speak deep to our spirit. And so I'm excited. Be back tomorrow. We'll be continuing in the rest of their experience together, and we'll begin to see what begins to happen there. Jesus has now revealed to her, he said, I am the Messiah. And so we will look and see what becomes of the rest of their encounter together. So God bless you. I hope you have a great day today. And just let this word sink down deep into your spirit each and every day and reflect upon it. And just continue to trust the Lord and seek him. And, if you need to contact us for prayer requests, please do so. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll be praying for your needs. God bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow for our next study together. God bless you.